Captain Jack here. Today I thought I'd look at even more Atari Homebrew games. This video will be split into two parts of 15 games because of its size, with part 2 coming out in about a month. The Atari homebrew scene is one of the most expansive video game homebrew scenes with easily hundreds of homebrew titles, ranging from demakes of popular IPs, completely new creations, to even better versions of games that already exist on the system. If you want more, check out AtariAge.com, where you can find many more homebrew titles just like these. Enjoy. Starting out with a heavy swinger, Zookeeper has really original gameplay. It's a port of an arcade game that never received a home version when it originally came out, so this is a first for this game. The gameplay is basically maintaining the fence around the animals by walking around it, and whatever animals are still in the enclosure by the end of the round are the points you get. The controls are maybe the only thing this game has against it. They're a little bit confusing. Basically, you're just gonna have to press a new direction whenever you turn a corner. Whenever animals make it out, it's not just lost points, they become hazards, and you're gonna have to jump over them. It's a little tricky to understand at first. There's no game quite like it, but it's a really fun experience and a solid port. It looks and sounds just as good, if not better, than the original to me. Keeping in line with animal-themed games, we have Doggone. So you're trying to deliver packages to people while dogs hunt you down. There's 3 screens, and after you beat them all, it restarts at a higher difficulty, very much like a traditional Atari game. The graphics are very simple, but they're clean. The cat's tail is probably the best thing graphically going on here. It's a much simpler game than Zookeeper, but that's because it has a different design philosophy. You see, this is actually a really good time to point this out. I've noticed that 2600 Homebrew either goes one of 2 routes. You either try to get everything out of the system in any means necessary, this means extra chips, bigger cart sizes, or you try to fit the confinements of the day. And that's what Doggone's doing, basically. It has no new tricks. It actually has the same cartridge size as the launch titles, which is ridiculously small. So a lot of these games won't really compare in the same way, and that's actually why I have the cartridge size at the bottom of the screen. It's a quick way to tell what the game's going for. The best thing Iran has going for it is its graphics. It's got multicolor gradient, really well animated sprites. Other than that, the game's pretty simple. It's just a standard runner. There is a hard difficulty option, but you're not going to need that. The game's already hard enough as is. It's very twitchy. Runners on the Atari 2600 is a very small category, but of all of them, it probably takes the cake. Now this is Avalanche. So this is a port of a very early Atari arcade game, and I'm kind of surprised it was never ported during the 2600's original run. It seems like a perfect fit for the system, especially in the early days. It's almost like a prototype Kaboom. You're catching these pieces of snow as they cascade down at a faster and faster rate. Oh, and you lose layers of your catcher as the game goes on, so the difficulty kind of burns at both ends. This game begs to be played with a paddle controller, and I don't have one, so please excuse the atrocious gameplay. This is Spies in the Night 2. Now, it's all in black and white, which actually kinda works. It gives it a film noir styling, which I'm sure is what they were going for. The core gameplay is clearing a series of rooms until you reach the top of a lighthouse, with the amount of time you have to reach the top being determined by the game's difficulty setting. These rooms you have to clear are a randomized set of the mini-games that Spies in the Night 2 has. There's an electrified invisible fence game where you can only see the fence you're trying to avoid every few seconds. This one is by far the most frustrating. There's a tripwire laser game where the lasers fry you if you move while they pass over you. This one is simple, but it's really easy to get the hang of. Then there's a spotlight sniper game. If the spotlight catches you, it guns you down. And then there's a second variation of that same game, basically, where the camera is just 180 behind you. This is by far the most fun. Taking risks in this one and going for that next window when you think you might not have enough time is usually worth it. There's also bonus rooms that can give you more time. Now you're gonna need good luck with these, because the amount of time the game originally gives you to clear the entire lighthouse is not usually enough. I'd say if any game earned its right to be 32K, it's this one. This is basically 4 games in one. Bass Fishing Tournament is probably the most relaxing game on the system. You simply grab fish and struggle to bring them up to the boat. The bigger the fish, the more points you get. Honestly, the biggest obstacle to grabbing fish is other fish, who decide they want to turn on the hook. Occasionally, there's a giant fish at the bottom that appears. Good luck grabbing that. After beating around, it seems like the game starts over. But this time, everything's trash. No, everything is trash. I kinda like this more, honestly. There's more personality to it. The fish are now way more distinct. There's boots, bottles, there's even a car that lurks around at the bottom. Either way, Bass Fishing Tournament is about as much fishing as you'll ever need on the 2600. Whale Dive is very much a work in progress. There's like 2 sound effects. Probably the most incomplete game I'm showing, but I had a lot of fun with it. So there's 3 courses. You're trying to guide your whale to the ocean by dodging all the obstacles in its path. I feel like that if the game was slowed down just a bit, it would make these short courses more interesting. Also allowing you to play off reflexes alone. At this point, it's basically trial and error because of how fast it is. The first time you get hit, you bounce up and you get another chance. You're definitely going to need that, and it's a great feature. Definitely my favorite thing here, though, is that the game has this nice little shimmer effect when the whale is underwater. It's pretty subtle, but I really wish I'd see this in other games. There's not much here right now, but I'm excited to see what this is going to become. This is Mappy for the Atari 2600. Now, this is a technical feat. Based off the Mappy arcade game, the Atari 2600 version goes above and beyond in recapturing the original and uses every single graphical and memory trick in the book to make this one of the best looking and sounding games on the system. Everything is intact here. The bonus level, all the music, enemy behaviors, the door shenanigans. This is probably one of the best ports of the system of a game that I personally love. This is just a joy to play. Ms. Galactapus, which is a bombastic title, has you pitted against a Galactapus as she shoots down her babies trying to get rid of the, I'm gonna guess, force field that protects Earth. The thing that really gives this game a twist is that you can reshoot your bullet before it hits anything. It seems small, but you usually would have to wait for your singular, and yes, singular due to hardware limitations, bullet, to reach something to reshoot. But here you can just do a take-backsy on your shot. This allows you to take shots at the Galactapus at any time while having the freedom to recall your bullet if a baby gets too close and you need to focus on that instead. The Galactapus gets faster and faster as it goes on, and there is a bonus level, but that's about it, at least for the version I have. There are a lot of shooters on the Atari, but a Roach in Space seems to be one of the only scrolling shooters I've seen. Most of the other shooters are stationary, Space Invader type games. It's a pretty good take on the genre though. The quirkiness of having a bug as the ship definitely takes the cake as the most memorable aspect. But what really shows why scrolling shooters weren't that common on the system to begin with is the sprite limit. These games are supposed to have like 10 ships on screen, and as you can see here, there's never more than like 2, and usually those are duplicates. I wish they used Flicker to double the amount of ships, and that would have really added something, but it's pretty good despite the limitations. Penult is basically what would happen if they ported an early Ultima game to the 2600. It's a very basic but still incredibly working RPG. There's a crazy amount of functionality here considering the hardware it's on. There are towns with NPCs you can talk to, purchasable gear, spells to cast, a stat system, tons of things are here, which is probably why it's on a 28K cartridge. Jeez, holy crap. That's huge, but it makes sense considering what's jammed in. The battles are random encounters that you'll occasionally find in the overworld, and they're turn-based affairs where you can either move or pick an action. You have this dragon sidekick that helps you, and it's probably better than the main character because it has a ranged attack with unlimited ammo. But I'm sure the main character can get a bow or something that evens the odds. Back to simpler things, we have Caverns. Now this is a corridor shooter where you try to find and destroy these control center dots that open gates, allowing you to explore more of the world. It's a great simple formula, but it's completely hindered by just how difficult these square drone things are. They are just way too fast and shoot way too perfectly to be the main enemy you encounter in the game. Maybe it's just me, maybe I just suck at this, but holy crap, they are hard. I feel like if that was fixed though, this would be a great little experience. So this is Robot City. It's a maze shooter. That's the best way to describe it. You have to shoot the exposed point behind these tanks that are constantly chasing you. But it's much harder than it looks, partially because they have perfect aim. They will shoot you down whenever you cross their line of sight. Honestly, between the lightning fast bullets and the perfect turns each tank makes in an effort to find a way to kill you, it's like a horror game. You can change the difficulty, and that basically slows down the gameplay and removes a couple tanks from the screen. I would say less than 4 is optimal. When you have 4 tanks, you're never gonna win. Overall, if I didn't know this game was made in 2019, I would have assumed it was an official game that came out in 1980, which I think is what it's going for. Daredevil has you parachuting while avoiding airborne hazards as you try to get to the bottom. The only thing comparable in my experience is the first level of Vectorman 2, but I'm sure there's other games in this genre. Each level is about 6 screens, but you probably won't get past level 5, as it gets hard pretty quick. Wind direction and rain come into play, so the little control you do have over the character, which you can move his legs to slow him down or speed him up, you're gonna have to use that to its maximum potential. The title music is really good for some reason. It didn't have to be, but it's really, really well done. The level intros are fun. I like the Mission Impossible little theme playing in the back there. It's one of the only games on the system to have a level intro, so there's that. Plague is incredibly atmospheric and tries to be a horror platformer, which is something the Atari isn't really meant to do. The results are way better than expected. You have to clear room after room of tricky obstacles and creative monsters. And the amount of different enemies here is actually amazing for the 2600. There's even a boss at the end. The music that drones on throughout the game definitely isn't pleasant, but it grew on me. I feel like it adds to the stress Plague really wants you to feel here. The black and white color palette is here, and it works about as well as it does in Spies in the Night 2. And I love how at the end, color is finally shown to signify that you beat the game. Plague does have one huge flaw though. The jumping and collision detection is kinda spotty, and it's usually how you get killed instead of actual human error. I'm sure it has something to do with how detailed the playfield is, but it does show why platformers are far and few between for this hardware. All in all though, this is a fun and unique experience that you should probably play with save states. Thanks for watching.